G'day students. I just want to put together a little bit of a story that brings together a few interesting components. It's about a company that loses somewhere around $10 billion in value. It's around Spotify. It's around a shock drop, like a radio commentator that says controversial things with a $100 million contract. We throw in a little bit of James Blunt, some tactical marketing. I think it's an interesting story at the moment. Here's the core of the story. This is Spotify. I imagine most, if not all of you, will know it as the music sharing service. And over the past little while, it's fallen in value a lot. So the past month, it's fallen from a share price per share of $240 down to below $180. So it was worth, the whole company was worth a bit over $40 billion. It's now worth a bit over $30 billion. Now we're going to look more at shares and share prices and so on over time. This isn't a company that you could buy when we do the share market game because it's not a company that trades in Australia. You can see maybe at the top, the NYSE, that's New York Stock Exchange. We want to have a look at why this company has had such a popular company, a company that we know, a name we know. Why has it had such a dramatic fall in value? That brings us to Joe Rogan. Now, I've never listened to what Joe Rogan has to do, but he's in that group of people often referred to as shock jocks. They say controversial things, they build up a big audience talking about those sort of issues. And he has some controversial opinions around COVID-19 that he's made. Now, he has a big contract with Spotify, $100 million. Now, I can't find out how many years that's for, but it really doesn't matter. $100 million is a lot of years. Even if he's got to do it for the next 100 years, that's $1 million a year. He's getting paid an extraordinary amount of money by Spotify to create this show that is then accessed through the streaming service. However, Neil Young, and I suspect if you go to YouTube and you his most famous song, put his name in his most famous song, Old Man, you'll probably recognise the song. He's objected to some of the things that Joe Rogan has been saying, and he said, well, Spotify, you've got to make a choice. It's either going to be me or Joe. I'm not going to stay on your platform if the shock jock Joe Rogan is still there. Now, he's not the only artist to say that. There have been a couple of others so far, a couple others to take the same way. Now, in amongst this story, I don't know how many of you know James Blunt as an artist, but he's very clever, very witty on social humour, and he's kind of had a dig at himself with his ironic humour. And as he said, his threat is if they don't remove Joe Rogan, he's actually going to put more music on Spotify. And I think it's a clever little use of social media space, and you can see already when that screenshot was taken, it had 250,000 people that interacted with there. Now, in other parts of the story, Apple Music's seen it as a little bit of an opportunity. So they've now promoting themselves as the home of Neil Young as a competitive streaming service to Spotify. So what are the bigger business implications here? So the first one is a bit of a mouthful, corporate social responsibility, but I think it means that a lot of people are talking about what they expect of their companies and the way they're going. And so engaging with a controversial figure like Joe Rogan may not be a great idea for a company. And I've seen on my social media feeds a lot of people individually saying they're cancelling their Spotify service because of that. The second is we've seen the impacts on the share price of the company. They've had a lot of $10 billion wiped off the value of a company valued at $40 billion. That's a significant drop over a fairly short period of time. See the importance of suppliers. So, the reported artists who've left at this stage, possibly not a huge deal, but it might be interesting to see if this is a trend that continues. It's not something you would want. And, I like the way James Blunt comes in there and uses his humour. So just a little business story, well worth keeping an eye on. Seeing what's happening with Spotify might be something you've already seen in and about as well.